And welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times News Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcasts and give us any constructive feedback.
From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 1st of September 2022, from the news section. It's heartbreaking to know I'm the only one of my family who escaped death. Glasgow Vigil for Drug Deaths, by Stuart Patterson. People came to George Square last night to remember the men and women who have lost their lives in a drug-related death. In 2021, in Glasgow, the number reached a shocking new record high when 311 people died. Year after year, people are lost, with more than 2,000 people dying in the last 10 years in Glasgow. Families and friends gathered last night to mourn their loved ones and remember the brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, mothers and fathers they lost. Each took their turn at the mic, speaking in public, sharing their experience and asking for change to prevent more people from dying. Patricia Colligan spoke of losing several members of her family. She said, "I've lost 4 family members, 3 sisters and a son in the last 4 years. Nothing got done with them. I'm 9 years in recovery. My mother got to see one daughter get off drugs. It's heartbreaking to know I'm the only one of my family who escaped death." Justine McMaster spoke of her experience of losing a number of people she loved. She said, "I'm the daughter of a mother who died from this illness. I've been burying friends since I was 14 years old. I am now 40 years old and I'm still burying friends. We must change." Another man spoke of his brother, Evan. He said, "My brother Evan passed away last November of a heroin overdose in his house. He had mental health problems and he was not helped correctly. Evan tried to kill himself twice. After that he was sectioned and put in an institution where it was easier to get drugs than it was on the streets." Several other men and women shared their experiences. Natalie McLean, chief executive of recovery group Cisco, helped organise a vigil 3 years ago and has been campaigning for a change in how people are treated. She said, "I stood here 3 years ago after I lost the 6th member of my family. She read out their names and asked people to remember. Stevie Logan, Jamie Logan, Danny McSweeney, David Scott, Mary McSweeney, Paul Houston." She added, "But nothing has changed. Last year, 1,330 family members buried their loved ones." She added, "To the families out there suffering and struggling, we hear and see you and will forever mourn and grieve with you. We see the name, not the number." Anne-Marie Ward of Faces and Voices of Recovery, FAVOR, called on the politicians to act. She said, 3 years ago we stood on this same spot. Some are no longer with us. Since then there has been a 12% rise in deaths." She said, "Government acting in the same way, pursuing the same policies through the same organisations, has led to people continuing to die in their thousands." She added, "There has been no difference, no change and more deaths in the last 3 years." This article was by Stuart Patterson. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 1st of September 2022, from the news section. Arrest made after man allegedly hit on head with concrete slab in Glasgow, by Lauren Brownlee. A man was arrested following an alleged assault in Springburn. Police received a report of a disturbance in the car park of Parkgate Supermarket, Balgrey Hill Road, on Tuesday afternoon. A 48-year-old man attended Stop Hill Hospital for treatment. It is alleged he was hit over the head with a concrete slab. Police arrested and charged a 35-year-old man with an alleged assault. He was due to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court yesterday. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, around 1:05 p.m. on Tuesday, August the 30th, 2022, police received a report of a disturbance in Balgrey Hill Road, Springburn, Glasgow. A 48-year-old man sustained minor injuries and attended Stop Hill with a family member. A 35-year-old man was arrested and charged in connection with alleged assault. He was expected to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court on Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. A report will be sent to the Procurator Fiscal. This article was by Lauren Brownlee. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 1st of September 2022, from the news section. Cost of living. Which warning over fake Ofgem energy bill rebate scam. Scammers are posing as Ofgem to scam people worried about affording their energy bills as the cost of living crisis worsens. Fraudsters are impersonating the energy regulator to dupe people into handing over their personal and payment details. Emails are being sent to people using the Ofgem logo and branding to offer an energy bill rebate scheme. The email directs people to log on to a fake online portal where victims are urged to share personal details to claim their refund. Consumer group Which is warning people to be wary of falling victim to the scam. It said, the deceptive emails inform you that you can get your rebate via the Ofgem portal by clicking a link that takes you to a fake site. Capitalising on the government's cost of living energy measures, the email explains that you claim a £200 discount on energy bills this autumn and a £500 council tax rebate. It also claims that you have to apply before September. While this email appears to come from Ofgem, if you examine the sender's email, you can see that the address has been spoofed. The link in the email directs you to a fake portal to harvest your details. The fake website, rebates-ofgem.com, prompted urgent warnings from the real Ofgem earlier this year. On arriving at the fake site, victims are confronted with a web form in order to set up a direct debit, which initially requires your full name, date of birth and email address. Anyone providing these details to the scam site is likely to find their card fraudulently debited and would also be at grave risk of their identity and online accounts being taken over. Which and Ofgem have both reported the scam to the National Cybersecurity Centre, NCSC. Cost of living support for energy bills. Government support is available to help people pay their energy bills. Households will start receiving money off their energy bills from October, with a discount made in 6 instalments. A discount of £66 will be applied to energy bills in October and November, rising to £67 each month from December through to March 2023. Further government support includes a £650 one-off cost of living payment for around 8 million households on mean-tested benefits. This article was by Joshua Searle.
From the Glasgow Times of Thursday the 1st of September 2022, from the opinion section, Nicola Sturgeon column, the energy price cap increase consequences will be catastrophic for millions. Friday last week brought confirmation of news we've all been dreading. Regulator Ofgem confirmed that the energy price cap is set to rise by 80% from October, with average household bills increasing to more than £3,500 a year. This rise follows on from a 54% rise just a few months ago and makes energy simply unaffordable for millions, perhaps the majority of people across the UK. Let's be absolutely clear. This rise cannot be allowed to go ahead. If it does, the consequences will be catastrophic for millions of households and businesses. These eye-watering energy bill hikes, and there are more steep rises expected in the months ahead, are the most vivid driver of the cost of living crisis which is affecting every area of our society. The Bank of England has forecast that inflation will rise to more than 13% in October, which means that not just energy, but everything else too will be costing more. What is also terrifying is that experts predict it could reach more than 18% ultimately. That would be the highest rate of inflation in the UK for almost 50 years. The Scottish Government is treating the rapidly escalating cost of living situation as a public emergency, and we will continue to do everything we can to mitigate this cost of living crisis. Last week, before the price cap announcement, I met with energy companies and advice organisations to discuss what can be done to help ease the pressure on households across Scotland. We reached a consensus that energy customers simply cannot be expected to carry the burden of further price rises in October and beyond, and that the UK government must now commit to freeze the cap for all households and then work with energy companies to agree how that is to be paid for. And we agreed that this commitment must come now. There is no time to waste. Our foremost concern is for those in or at risk of fuel poverty, and it is imperative that those worried about or struggling with heating their homes access the information and support they need to reduce their energy bills. To that end, we have announced a £1.2 million package to enable the immediate expansion of energy advice services to ensure households and businesses receive the support and guidance they need. If you are worried about your finances, you are far from alone, and there are many excellent sources of advice that you can access, including Advice Direct Scotland, Home Energy Scotland, and Citizens Advice Scotland. And, of course, we have been doing everything we can to support household budgets within the powers of the Scottish Parliament. Measures we introduced in recent years, such as the doubling of free childcare provision to 1,140 hours, the council tax reduction scheme, and expanding the provision of universal free school meals, were all designed to help household budgets, and they've never been more important. The SNP government package of 5 family benefits for low-income families, including the Scottish Child Payment, is providing unparalleled support for families. I need to be absolutely candid though, and I wish this wasn't the case, that when it comes to energy policy, the key powers lie at Westminster. Without action by the UK government to address the problem at source, the actions we are taking can only ever partly mitigate the impact of such dramatic price rises. It is the UK government which has the borrowing and regulatory powers to make the urgent interventions which are needed right now. By refusing to use its reserved powers to tackle the cost of living crisis, Scottish families and businesses are being left in the lurch, not knowing what, when or if help will come. As well as cancelling any further price rise, which is the most important intervention they could make, there are a number of other steps we are calling on the UK government to take. They need to provide significant additional support to help households and businesses already struggling with energy bills and the impact of inflation more generally. They also need to take action to protect small and medium-sized businesses and other organisations not covered by the price cap from rising energy costs. More fundamentally, they need to reform the energy market for the longer term to prevent this situation from occurring again in the future. People are quite rightly asking why, in one of the most energy-rich countries in Europe, so many households are now facing fuel poverty. Something is fundamentally wrong with the UK's energy policy. None of this can wait any longer. The Tory government has been in hibernation for the whole summer, while the Tories choose what will be the 4th Prime Minister in 6 years. In 10 days' time, we will know who that new Prime Minister is going to be. From the moment that they take office, tackling the cost of living crisis needs to be the top of their in-tray. I and my SNP colleagues, both in the Scottish Government and at Westminster, will be pressing them to do so immediately. This article was by Nicola Sturgeon from the Glasgow Times of Thursday the 1st of September 2022, from the opinion section, Secret Glasgow Taxi Driver, All We Can Do Is Keep Fighting the Good Fight. This column last week revealed a lengthy letter from Glasgow Taxis to an elected Glasgow City Councillor, highlighting, again, the major challenges staring both trade and drivers in the face. I must take my hat off to the good people of Glasgow Times for not only printing the letter in full, but also for showing support and looking into the story further. Thanks also to those who read the piece and commented favourably. I'm not sure if it was a coincidence or not, but just 24 hours after the column ran in the Glasgow Times, there was a response from the councillor back to Glasgow Taxis headquarters. What are the chances, eh? The response is far too long to share on here. Those politicians can't half talk, can they? But the upside is at least there was a response, and one which, in fairness, spelled out the council's position on all the matters that had been raised. On the downside, I'm not sure we are significantly further forward, bar a marginal gain or two, as many issues continue to be batted back and forth, no pun intended, between local government in Glasgow and national decision makers in Edinburgh. All we can do is keep fighting the good fight. In other news, over the past 7 days, I read another article online speculating that water taxis could arrive on the River Clyde soon to help Glaswegians get from A to B. Albeit that's a very fixed A to B, isn't it? Handy if you live in Yoker and work in the Riverside Museum and can scoot along the water. Not so good if you actually need to get around the city and its suburbs. Nothing against water-based transport whatsoever, of course. The more that is done to make the most of the asset that is our wonderful River Clyde, the better, in my view. But before we get to water taxis, can we do a proper job helping out the road versions first, please? Every single day there's Glasgow taxis making a huge difference to the lives of those in the city. Like my pal Billy McLaughlin at Firhill Stadium again last night, helping fans with mobility issues get a lift from Firhill Road up the hill to the Jackie Husband stand to watch their team. Wouldn't it be great if a proper solution was found to help sufficiently support the many drivers in the same mould as Billy who just want to be able to keep doing their job, helping folks every day? We'll remain eternally optimistic, and as I said, we'll keep fighting the good fight. And we do appreciate your support, including all you Times readers. Thanks. Stay safe. This article was by the Secret Glasgow Taxi Driver.
From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 2nd of September 2022, from the news section. Person kicked out of Kevin Bridges' show after fight breaks out at the Glasgow Hydro. By Lauren Brownlee. An audience member was removed from Kevin Bridges' show at the Oval Hydro after a fight broke out. The Glasgow comedian was performing his first of 16 sold out shows at the city venue as part of the overdue catch-up tour last night. But a fight broke out during the comedy show. Those who had tickets shared the news on Twitter. One person said, "Yes, there was a fight at Kevin Bridges tonight. No, I wasn't involved. Yes, Kevin made it hilarious." Another added, "Imagine going to see Kevin then getting kicked out for fighting. What a night." An Oval Hydro spokesperson confirmed one person was removed from the venue as soon as their team became aware of the incident. Meanwhile, Police Scotland said they had no reports of the incident. We previously reported that fans were blown away by the comedian. One fan said she'd laughed so hard she lost her powers of sight. An SEC spokesperson said the individual in question was removed as soon as her team became aware of the situation, as is standard practice. And that article is by Lauren Brownlee.
This article is from the Glasgow Times. Date 1st September 2022. From the Lifestyle section. Amazon Prime price rise for UK customers this month amid cost of living crisis. By Joshua Serrell. The cost of an Amazon Prime subscription will rise this month as the cost of living crisis continues to bite for many. Amazon says the hike in the price of its delivery and streaming service is due to increased inflation and operating costs. The technology giant offers free unlimited delivery, entertainment streaming and live sport through the Prime service. How much is Amazon Prime price rise? It said it will increase the price of Prime from £7.99 each month to £8.99. The rise means the annual Amazon Prime membership will rise in cost from £79 to £95 per year in the UK. The Prime's price increase in the services first since 2014. It comes months after Netflix increased basic and standard plans by £1 a month, while its premium plan was pushed £2 higher only 18 months after a previous increase. When will Amazon Prime prices rise? The Amazon Prime price rise will come into force from September 15th for new customers or on the date of the existing customer's next renewal. A spokesman for the company said, "Prime offers the best of shopping and entertainment and continues to improve each year. We have increased the number of products available with fast, unlimited Prime delivery, recently added ultra-fresh grocery delivery, and have significantly expanded our high-quality digital entertainment, including TV, movies, music, games and books." With increased inflation and operating costs in the UK continuing to rise, we will change the price of Prime. Amazon has pumped billions of pounds of its streaming content in recent years, with original series such as The Boys and The Terminal List. In September, the Prime video platform will release The Lord of the Rings of Power series, which cost an estimated £750 million in rights and filming costs. The company is also investing millions into sporting rights, having earlier this month secured the rights to show some Champions League matches from 24-24, adding to its rights for 20 Premier League games each season. That article was by Joshua Serrell. This article is from the Glasgow Times, date 1st September 2022, from the Opinion section. I have had enough of how to save money articles. By Adam Miller. Here's how to save £28 a week from October. With a headline like that, the article will almost certainly be amongst a national newspaper's most read of the month. Only the wealthy are insulated from concerns about rising energy bills, and so there are millions of people currently looking for ways to cut back. Those who did click on the story will have been helped no end by such suggestions as going into the office to save on heating during the day 5 days a week saves about £23.85. I know your average nepotism-smugly journalist can't be expected to understand such things, but offices don't tend to be located in one's conservatory. If you can't spot the glaring issue with that particular recommendation, congratulations on being in the tiny proportion of the British workforce who can commute to and from an office for less than £23.85 per week. In 2022, we can't move for cost-cutting recommendations. Some of these are well-intentioned and occasionally even helpful, but others are ill-informed, impractical and condescending. The tone was set by major provider OVO Energy in January with a blog post which listed 10 simple and cost-effective ways to avoid paying too much while not freezing. You don't always need to rely on your central heating to stay warm, insisted OVO. I checked and there was no asterisk with "this advice does not apply to consumers in Scotland" next to it. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and hear them out. Have a cuddle with your pets and loved ones to help stay cosy. Oh, of course, there's not a single person in Britain who doesn't share their home with either a pet or a loved one. If you're single, just buy a pet to keep you warm. The purchase and upkeep of a cat definitely won't cost more than turning on the heating. At least OVO are looking out for those pets. After advising customers to keep your oven open after you've finished cooking, they helpfully added, "Just be careful if there are pets or small children around." How much heat does teaching a granny to suck eggs generate? They also suggested challenging the kids to a hula hoop contest or doing a few star jumps. If you don't have children, I guess you could always challenge the kids next door and steal some of their parents' heat in the process. The backlash was, ironically, heated. In response, OVO told a news organisation that their blog was poorly judged and unhelpful, adding, "We are embarrassed and sincerely apologise." The best you can say about them is that they had the self-awareness to say sorry. You'll find none of that in a certain tribe online, whose members can be found lurking in the replies under every tweet from money-saving expert and one-man opposition party Martin Lewis. Earlier this year, Scottish comedian Mark Nelson tweeted, "Always love the 'you should be allowed to smack children' debate. I was smacked as a child and it never did me any harm." Well, yes it did. It turned you into a prick who beats up children. This works just as well if you replace "I was smacked as a kid" with "I grew up in a home with no central heating." For certain middle-aged weirdos, difficult times seem to induce hardship stoners. You know the ones I'm talking about. The type who just can't wait to tell you how much harder things were in their day and that they didn't text TikTok about it on their iPod PlayStation because they were too busy kicking a ball on the street. But now the PC brigade won't let 8-year-olds smoke Marlboro Lights because of Greta Thunberg. One such poverty fetishist recently told Lewis, "I lived in the 40s, 50s and 60s with only one fire, no double glazing, loft insulation, no felt between slates, ice on the inside of the windows, used hot water bottles, coats on beds. Why now should people be dying? Is it because we've gone soft?" All of us will face hard times in the course of our lives. The test of our humanity is whether we want others to experience the same difficulties or work towards ensuring that as few people as possible have to endure them. This winter will be tough. We should be looking out for each other, not recreating Monty Python's Four Yorkshiremen sketch, minus the humour. Former Tory MP Edwina Currie this week urged Lewis to stop using words like catastrophe and instead advise people to take sensible steps to reduce the effect on their families and business. She also implored him to stop pretending that governments can do everything. Obviously, they can't do everything, but something would be nice. Despite what Currie believes, the onus shouldn't be on you, me, or even Martin Lewis to manage this crisis. And yet, Westminster's leadership vacuum means we're left sifting through endless how to reduce your energy bills pieces. If you're struggling to stay warm, try reading that national newspaper article. The steam coming out of your ears will keep you going for months. That article was by Adam Miller. This article is from The National, date 1st September 2022, from the Culture section. Scotland in Colour, the Scottish Festival Championing Diversity, by Ninian Wilson. This weekend, a festival in our nation's capital will be putting Scottish diversity in the spotlight. Scotland in Colour will set the stage for musicians, artists and creatives to celebrate our country's multicultural society. Hitting the slopes of Edinburgh's Calton Hill on Saturday, the fiesta will bring people from different backgrounds into one big community. The festival is organised by Intercultural Youth Scotland, or IYS, a group that looks to edify Scotland's young people on race-related issues by showcasing talent from different ethnic backgrounds, which underpins the festival's entire raison d'être. For IYS and Scotland in Colour, inclusion isn't just a buzzword to be bandied about. It's something fundamental that must be put into practice. Community artist Ursula Cheng personifies all the best of IYS's work. Northern Irish-born, Scottish-based and with Asian roots, she has a history of helping kids appreciate their community through IYS. And on Saturday, she will be curating a live art installation that allows partygoers to participate in making the piece in their own impromptu way, making them feel involved. Speaking with The National, she spoke of how events like Scotland in Colour can help bring communities together and aid people's understanding of their background. She says it's all about being inclusive, and it's not just for young people either. It's for people across generations, getting them to be aware of the heritage in their own area. And it's been great having them share that with me as an outsider, going into that area and learn interesting facts about these places. Cheng says her background is a secret weapon that gives her a unique perspective on community and the feeling of being on the outside looking in. I've grown up in quite divided, segregated communities, especially being mixed race. You often feel the outsider and very much the otherness of things. That's something I can appreciate going into adulthood that has given me a unique perspective. Community is something I've always been intrigued by, and the positive outcomes of feeling like you're part of something and included. I think that being other and different, if you can have some sense of camaraderie and that your identity is being acknowledged, it can be so important for confidence and self-esteem. You can be different, but have a collective that you pull strength from and understand that you're not alone. While the lineup is set to feature a host of star-studded talent, including award-winning rapper BMEZ, there will be one act that knows all about feeling like an outsider. Grace and the Flatboys is a band forged from people of different backgrounds and musical traditions in the halls of Edinburgh University. They played at last year's festival, and since then the band's drummer, Mustafis Kolesko, says he has seen just how active IYS is in offering help. He says, "One thing I've noticed is that while IYS is focused on the intercultural makeup of Scotland, they will look to help develop young people no matter what their background is. Obviously, there is a focus on BPOC backgrounds, but no matter where you come from, they will give you a helping hand." This was something he witnessed at the festival's last outing. There were lots of young people, and many were Scottish white people being put on because they were young. IYS focuses on both intercultural makeup and developing young people, side by side. That message and getting it out there is so important. For the group's eponymous lead singer, Grace Dempsey, Scotland in Colour and events like it are invaluable for celebrating different cultural perspectives. She says, "I feel like we always need to celebrate diversity and education, so coordinating these platforms in any way that's possible is so important. It's not just traditional education, it's displaying it for everyone to see. There isn't just one way of educating or celebrating success. Even though festivals are fun and about having a good time, it's about bringing people together and displaying people from different backgrounds and cultures." She adds, "It ticks all the boxes, which is a horrible thing to say about diversity, but it does." That article was by Ninian Wilson.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 5th of September. Boxer stabbed neighbour to death over noise dispute. An article written by Connor Gordon. A boxer stabbed his neighbour to death amid a dispute about noise. Shane Young, who's 22, struck Richard Marshall 40 times at his flat in Blantyre on March the 31st last year. Mr. Young repeatedly punched and kicked Mr. Marshall to the head and body, causing a fracture to every bone in his face. He then went on to arm himself with what was believed to be a screwdriver, where he punctured Mr. Marshall's body. The brute then locked his bruised and bloodied victim in the flat and fled the scene. He later told his dad that he went in for the kill. Mr. Young faces a life sentence after he was found guilty at the High Court in Glasgow to murdering Mr. Marshall. The court heard from prosecutor Greg Farrell, who told the jurors in his closing speech, "There appears to have been bad feeling in the background due to noise or music. We know there was bad feeling about noise." The trial was told Mr. Marshall had tried to confront Mr. Young at his flat months earlier, and he called the police. Mr. Marshall's mother, Betty, told the jury in her evidence that she was also aware of a dispute about music. Betty stated she was to go shopping with her son on the day of his murder. She claimed that Mr. Marshall had initially come out to see her in her car before heading back inside to get changed. The witness stated that she kept on the phone to him, but he hung up as someone was at his door. Betty stated she was alarmed as she saw a man running from the building and she went to investigate. She said, "I got to the stairs and there was a big man standing with his hand on top of the door. He was covered in blood and I went to run downstairs and I slipped." Betty stated that the man told her, "Don't say, don't say, don't say." Mr. Young fled the scene to his father's property as passers-by unsuccessfully attempted to access the locked flat. A 999 call was made and entry was later forced. Officers found Mr. Marshall in a pool of blood and was still breathing. However, life was pronounced extinct after medics worked on him for 40 minutes. Mr. Young told the jury in his evidence that Mr. Marshall had come to his door with a knife. He stated that he suffered a hand injury trying to fend him off and later visited Mr. Marshall at his flat. Mr. Young claimed he was initially hit with a lamp before a struggle took place between the pair. Mr. Young stated he feared for his life and used his boxing training to get him down and make my escape. He stated that he punched Mr. Marshall twice, who fell and hit his head against objects. Mr. Young then claimed it was Mr. Marshall who picked up the screwdriver and tried to attack him with it, but he was able to disarm him. He added, "Mr. Marshall was very aggressive and kept coming, and I defended myself by striking him to the side, which caused all the puncture wounds." Mr. Young claimed that he dropped his key during the struggle and went back to get it and noticed Mr. Marshall was still moving. He said, "It was a foolish thing to lock the door. I locked the door and made my escape." Mr. Farrell stated that this wasn't an escape, this was calculated. The murder weapon was never recovered. Mr. Young later called his dad and told him that he went in for the kill, which he later told jurors was just boxing terminology for someone coming at you. Sentence was deferred, pending background reports, until the end of the month. Judge Lord Young said, "You have been convicted of a charge of murder and the only sentence is life imprisonment." Mr. Young, who appeared from custody, shook his head as he was led into the cells to continue his remand. An article written by Conor Gordon. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 5th of September. Concerns raised over lack of pest control. An article written by Jack Thompson. Concerns have been raised about a lack of pest control under an old railway bridge in a Renfrewshire village. Dozens of pigeons are said to have taken shelter underneath the structure in Eastwold Bank in Kilbarchan. The situation arose after the deterioration of netting designed to prevent bird access on the bridge, which is the responsibility of Sustrans, the custodian of the National Cycle Network. Councillor Gillian Graham, a Labour representative for the village, said that there were dead birds trapped in the net in what she described as a gruesome sight. She called for immediate action to deal with the issue and also urged the charity to renew paintwork on the structure. Councillor Graham said, "Constituents in Kilbarchan have raised concerns with me about the lack of pest control under the old railway bridge and the shabby and rusting state of its paintwork. The old netting to stop bird access under the bridge is in a shocking condition, with significant parts of it either absent or torn. As a result, dozens of pigeons roost and nest there. There are dead birds trapped in the net, and young and adult birds are regularly run over by cars when they fall from the nest. It's a gruesome and regular sight." Added to this is the potential health hazard caused by the amount of pigeon droppings across the pavement under the bridge, which Kilbarchan children walk over on their way to school every day. This is a serious pest control concern, and I'm calling on Sustrans to take immediate action to remove the birds and replace the netting. I've informed the Council's Environment and Infrastructure Services, and they will liaise with Sustrans to bring about a prompt solution. A Sustrans spokesperson said the relevant teams have been alerted to the concerns raised by Councillor Graham. The organisation said steps would be taken to address the issue as soon as we're able to, in a statement. It said, "When issues arise, we are grateful to all members of the community who take the time to make us aware of these. Our relevant teams have been urgently notified of the problems raised, and we'll be taking steps to address the immediate issue as soon as we're able to. This will include arranging for traffic management in order to remove the netting safely. We'll then look at addressing the longer-term issues with the pigeons, subject to being able to allocate the necessary funding." However, the charity said it would not be able to paint the bridge on aesthetic grounds as it's structurally sound. An article written by Jack Thompson. Glasgow Times News on Monday, September the 5th. Funeral for soldier Conor Morrison to take place next week. An article written by Jacob Nichol. The funeral of a young soldier from Bishopton who died after collapsing at his army barracks will take place next week. Conor Morrison, who was stationed at Woodbridge in Suffolk, suffered breathing difficulties on July the 21st, while the UK was experiencing a record-breaking heatwave. He was rushed to Ipswich Hospital but lost his fight for life 2 days later, with Mum Brigitte by his side, reports our sister title, The Gazette. Conor, who was just 20, is also survived by his dad Gary and siblings Andrew and Aaron. His funeral service will be held at Clydebank Crematorium at 2:30 p.m. on Friday, September the 9th, with all family and friends invited to attend. In lieu of flowers, his family has asked for donations to either the Colchester and Ipswich Hospitals charity or the Royal Engineers Association. After Conor's death, his mum posted a poignant tribute on Facebook in which she said his life had been cut way too short. She added, "I'd like to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone for their comments, pictures and memories about our Conor." Army colleagues also paid tributes to Conor, who was educated at Parkmains High in Erskine. A spokesperson for the West Lowland Battalion Army Cadet Force, where he trained as a teenager, said members there were saddened to hear of his death. Conor was a well-liked and respected young man who had been a member of our Erskine detachment for 5 years, leaving in 2020, added the spokesperson. He touched the lives of many of our adult instructors and cadets during his time in the Army Cadet Force. Conor served with 23 Parachute Engineer Regiment. After his death, an investigation was launched by the Defence Safety Authority alongside Suffolk Police and the Health and Safety Executive. An inquest is due to be held at a later date. An article written by Jacob Nichol. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 5th of September. Glasgow's top cop confirms number of arrests at Celtic vs Rangers game. An article written by Rebecca Newlands. Glasgow's most senior police officer has confirmed the number of arrests made at the Celtic vs Rangers fixture in the city. Celtic faced Rangers at home with 2 goals from Leal Abada, 1 from Jota and a 4th from David Turnbull. We previously reported that Chief Superintendent Mark Sutherland of Greater Glasgow Police Division has spoken about a police operation being implemented to ensure the day went smoothly. Chief Superintendent Sutherland has now confirmed that there were no major incidents at the game and that 2 arrests were made. He said an appropriate policing plan was in place around the fixture between Celtic and Rangers at Celtic Park on Saturday, September the 3rd. This involved officers working with a range of partners across the country to ensure the match went ahead safely and with minimal disruption to the wider public. The game passed without major incident and with only 2 arrests. An article written by Rebecca Newlands. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 5th of September. RAC warns drivers are being overcharged at the pumps. An article written by Joshua Searle. Drivers are still getting a raw deal at the pumps, overpaying by around 9 pence a litre despite a record price drop last month, new analysis shows. The RAC said average petrol prices sank to 169.8 pence per litre at the end of August, but should be around 161 pence per litre due to current wholesale costs. August saw average prices drop by 12.3 pence per litre, the largest monthly drop in records dating back 22 years. However, prices should still have fallen further. RAC spokesman Rod Dennis said 12 pence a litre is a lot to come off prices in a single month, so there's no doubt things could be worse. But in reality, drivers of petrol vehicles are still invariably getting a raw deal at the pumps. For whatever reason, major retailers are choosing not to pass on in full the reductions in the wholesale price of unleaded they've been benefiting from for some considerable time. There's a very strong case for the biggest sellers of fuel to cut their forecourt petrol prices further. Allowing for a generous 10 pence a litre margin, we should be seeing petrol sold for around 161 pence a litre. Some big supermarket sites aren't too far off charging this, but there's a real postcode lottery out there, with prices varying wildly depending on where a driver is in the country. Drivers must shop around for the best deal they can, and we applaud those independent retailers who are doing their best to charge a fairer price for fuel and support their local communities through this incredibly expensive time. A review by the Competition and Markets Authority found that growing oil refining margins were one of the main causes of fuel prices to soar earlier this year. The increase from the crude oil price when it enters refinery to the wholesale price when it leaves them as petrol or diesel had more than tripled in 12 months to nearly 35 pence per litre, the competition regulator said. An article written by Joshua Searle. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 5th of September. Bike bus has the power to stop traffic. An article written by Katrina Stewart. With the dinging of bells and happy chatter, it's possible to hear the Shawlands bike bus before you see it. Taking over the road on the way to primary school, the smallest members of the convoy are oblivious to the traffic waiting to let them pass. And now the adults in the group have less to stress about at the busy Shawlands Cross junction, thanks to an innovative bit of kit allowing them to control the traffic. Thought to be the first of its kind in the UK, a bike-mounted, remote-control device using a military-grade encrypted signal let the lead cyclist hold the lights. The ultra-smart cycle system, when pressed on approach to the junction, sets a specially timed traffic light cycle in motion to hold traffic for 45 seconds, enough time to get all of the riders through. The signal is only accepted by the control unit mounted on a traffic pole on a pre-programmed day during an agreed period, ideal for the once-a-week bike ride that passes through the junction between 8:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. every Friday. Jo Wright, who set up the bike bus with her husband Gareth Johnson, said, "This is a real vote of confidence in us. When we started, we didn't know if we were going to get into trouble, but the council has been extremely supportive. We know that we needed longer on the lights, but I thought it would never happen, and now we have this gizmo, which makes it so much less stressful going through the junction and cuts down on any risks. Ms. Wright is also amazed as to how much the bike bus has grown. She added, "It's really nice. There's just something really infectious about it." From a small group of families, the bike bus now draws around 60 pupils every Friday morning to cycle to school. While the majority of drivers are supportive, the group has faced some issues with horns blaring and close passes at the busy junction when turning onto Kilmarnock Road. The council's road safety unit had become involved and donated cycle helmet cameras, high-vis vests and banners along the route, with Police Scotland also riding alongside. But then officials from the Trafcom department worked to come up with a solution and adapted existing technology, especially for the bike bus. Working with Preston-based Smart Technology, a prototype was developed and a 3D unit printed to form the wireless button. With successful development and testing over the summer, the ultra-smart cycle system was used by the Shawlands bike bus for the first time last Friday. Steve Pearson, CEO of Smart Technology, said, "We're happy to have helped Glasgow City Council with the development of a solution that benefits the community with what is undoubtedly a great initiative." Parents from 6 other schools across the city have now been in touch with the council about setting up their own bike buses, a move supported by Shawlands parents. Ben Stern, dad to Leo, who's 8, and Dylan, who's 3, said Leo gets really excited about it on a Friday morning. The thing he likes most is that he can cycle with his friends because he's normally with his parents. You know that at least once a week, no matter what happens, they're going to do some cycling that they enjoy. The family has been cycling with the bike bus since the first week, and Ben says he's impressed at how it's grown. He added, "It's nice that they take over the space on the road. For children, they usually cycle in a park or on the pavement, and this gives them the chance to get out onto the road, which does them a lot of good." An article written by Katrina Stewart. Glasgow Times on Monday the 5th of September. Glasgow Times Spotlight. After being dubbed cocaine capital of the world, we decided to check out the state of our public bathrooms. Here are the results. A front-page article written by Katrina Stewart. Cocaine use has been uncovered in Glasgow city chambers, just metres from where politicians take major decisions about life in the city. Glasgow's recently been dubbed the cocaine capital of the world, and this week the Glasgow Times is taking an in-depth look at the issue. Using chemical swabs that turn from pink to blue on contact with the drug, we tested hotspots from shopping malls to law courts. We found traces of cocaine in 1/3 of the places we checked. Over the course of the week, we used dozens of cocaine swabs in public spaces across the city to see just how prevalent the drug is. And we found that if you move around Glasgow city centre, you're likely to have unknowingly come into contact with cocaine. There's no suggestion that any of the operators of the premises where traces were found were allowing drug use by visitors. In some spots, the quantity of cocaine found was so great it stained our reporters' hands blue. Scotland's drug deaths epidemic has seen cocaine involved in a growing number of fatalities. In Glasgow, that number has risen steadily over the past 10 years, with the latest figures showing 69 people died where cocaine was implicated. This accounted for 22% of 311 deaths, up from 19% of 157 deaths in 2010. In 2015, the figure was 8% of 94 deaths. Experts in the city say the ease of access to the drug and falling costs have helped contribute to an explosion in use. From being a glamour drug thought of as the substance of choice for footballers and actors, cocaine is now used across social classes. We headed out with cocaine detection wipes in Glasgow city centre to see just what we could find. The Four Corners, the junction of Argyle Street and Union Street, was an obvious target due to its high crime reputation. But on 2 weekdays and a weekend night, we found no traces of cocaine on touchscreens or in the toilets of McDonald's, Tim Hortons, KFC or Pizza Hut. Moving along to nearby Glasgow Central Station, however, the toilets of the transit hub gave the strongest result we uncovered. The station has the largest free-to-use toilets in the city centre, with Network Rail, which runs the central station, saying staff and British Transport Police officers carry out regular checks of the facilities. We checked multiple ticket machines and a cash machine, but our wipes stayed pink, showing no sign of cocaine. The toilets, however, were another story. On multiple surfaces in the ladies' loos, our wipes immediately turned bright blue, with an unarguable positive for cocaine. A Network Rail spokesperson said drug misuse is taken very seriously in the station. He added, "Anyone found to be in possession of drugs will be reported to the Transport Police. We work hard alongside the Transport Police and other partners to reduce antisocial behaviour within our stations, and drug-related incidents have been falling at Glasgow Central in recent years." All facilities within the station are regularly inspected and cleaned to help provide a safe environment for staff and passengers. Transport Police have recorded 5 drug offences at Glasgow Central in the year to date, down from 6 the year before. Arrests were made for non-drug related offences, but substances were found in subsequent searches of those arrested. We then moved to Glasgow City Chambers, the civic heart of the city, where politicians meet to take decisions on vital issues. But the historic building is open to the public, and we found light traces of cocaine in the most easily accessible toilets in the building. A spokesperson for Glasgow City Council declined to comment on the situation. Along on Argyle Street, we also found an extremely strong positive result in the toilets of Marks & Spencer. On a busy weekday when the store was full of shoppers, we checked the main toilets and disabled toilets in the basement of the store. While swabs in the main toilets stayed pink, the disabled lavatory tested positive for cocaine on top of the paper towel and loo roll dispensers. A Marks & Spencer spokesperson said, "Our toilets are cleaned and inspected regularly throughout the day. We have no evidence of repeated drug use taking place in them and would always act when alerted to any concerns." Perhaps the most brazen was the positive result for cocaine in Glasgow Sheriff Court. We swabbed toilets throughout Glasgow High Court and found no trace of the drug. We also checked every female toilet in the Sheriff Court and found cocaine on 2 separate occasions, on sinks in the ground floor lavatories. These toilets sit just feet from security guards carrying out searches on everyone entering the building and next to a group of police officers. A spokesperson for the Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service said, "Our staff work closely with partners, including the police, to take all reasonable precautions on security measures within our court buildings. If anyone witnesses drug use in our buildings, they're urged not to confront these persons, but to immediately report it to the police or security personnel." The Glasgow Times also swabbed various areas in Buchanan galleries, including escalator handrails and toilets, but no cocaine traces were found. However, a cash machine just outside the shopping centre did test positive for cocaine traces. Police Scotland said the force remains committed to reducing the tragic impact of drugs on the city's communities. A spokesperson said, "We remain committed to keeping our communities safe through partnership working, and with the support of local communities, we aim to make Scotland a safer place. Anyone with any information on drug dealing in their community is asked to contact Police Scotland via 101 or contact Crime Stoppers anonymously." A front page article written by Katrina Stewart.
Evening Times, September 5. Opinion. Mike Daly on re-evaluating importance of the lower paid workers. Local government workers and their trade unions should feel very proud of the pay settlement offer they have achieved through industrial action. They had originally been offered a 2% wage rise and were told there was no further money. That offer later rose to 5%, although as a one-off payment. The deal on the table is now much fairer. Pay increases will be permanent and between 5% and 10% for 87% of workers. For lower paid staff, this will help offset the double-digit rate of inflation, although it will not resolve the pressure of energy bills trebling. The deal for local government staff is a £2,000 increase for those earning up to £20,500 per annum. £1,925 for those paid between £20,000 to £39,000, 5% for those on £39,000 to £60,000, and a maximum £3,000 rise for those earning above £60,000. At one point we had the ludicrous prospect of senior management receiving the same pay rise as workers on £20,000. I found this baffling. Why should someone on £100,000 per annum receive a £10,000 cost of living award, while most workers were being offered a fifth of that? Rising costs of living are absolute. Your weekly shop is more expensive by X. Your household bills go up by Y. It costs more to travel. Yet we still cling to economic theories of relative wage differentials. That's where a higher paid manager's salary increases more in absolute terms than a lower paid worker. In other words, the pay gap becomes exponential. If anything, the COVID-19 pandemic has made us question the fairness of wage differentials, where the gap between those at the top and those at the bottom keeps getting bigger. The idea that higher paid staff have scarce skills and need to be compensated relatively more each year in order for employers to retain their skills was turned on its head during the pandemic. Our elected members could all happily go on strike and we'd be fine. But if our bin collectors go on strike, our society quickly becomes lord of the flies, literally, with mountains of rubbish, rats and insects. It is a good thing that we have been forced to re-evaluate the importance of manual labour and the service of workers who enable us to function as a society. Other workers are still negotiating pay deals with local authority body COSLA. Spare a thought for the third sector. There are more than 46,500 voluntary groups in Scotland, including almost 24,000 charities. Many of these organisations are small to medium in size and provide essential services in relation to social care, health, legal advice, welfare, culture and sport. Third sector charities often provide public services that are contracted by the government or other public bodies. A significant number of their workers are at the lower end of pay scales, and many charities operate on very tight budgets. Scottish charities employ more than 118,000 workers. Many of these workers have not had a pay rise for several years. Strike action for charities would likely be perilous, resulting in organisations being in breach of their conditions of grant for not providing contracted services. It would be good to see the Scottish Government and COSLA express views on how Scottish charities can help their staff during the cost of living crisis. It is not apparent that the new Prime Minister is going to provide much help with the financial misery that many people face. The winner will be announced at lunchtime today. The big idea from the expected winner, Liz Truss, is to reverse the April national insurance increase. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has estimated that this would give the lowest paid person £7.66 extra per annum, and the highest paid £1,801. For those on low wages, this proposal from Truss has less impact than Boris Johnson's wacky analogy of saving £10 a year by buying a new kettle at £20. The UK government could easily help lower paid workers by raising the personal allowance threshold before tax and reducing it for those on high-end salaries. This would put extra money directly into household budgets, but I doubt the Tories will have any appetite to redistribute wealth. All eyes will be on the Scottish Parliament tomorrow, when the new programme for government is unveiled. The First Minister said, on Tuesday, the Scottish Government will publish its programme for the government for the year ahead, and tackling the cost crisis will be front and centre of our plans. Whether that programme will contain a cost of living emergency bill or rent control measures for struggling renters, we shall have to wait and see. Certainly, utilising devolved powers to the max will be essential to help mitigate the cost of living crisis in Scotland, says Mike Daly.
Glasgow Times News on Tuesday the 6th of September. Disgraced ex-SNP Minister Derek Mackay to appear at Holyrood Committee. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Disgraced former Scottish Government Minister Derek Mackay is to appear at a Holyrood Committee this week. He'll give evidence in person over the delayed and over-budget Calmac ferries. Mr Mackay resigned as Finance Secretary in 2020 after he was found to have been sending inappropriate messages to a 16-year-old boy. The minister sent 270 unwanted messages, called him cute, and invited him to meet. Mr Mackay will give evidence to the Public Audit Committee over his role when he was Transport Minister in the awarding of contracts for Calmac ferries, which are currently over budget and delayed. The ferries currently under construction at Ferguson Shipyard in Port Glasgow are 5 years late and more than 2.5 times over budget. The boats were due to be ready in 2018 and cost £98 million. They're now estimated to cost £250 million. An Audit Scotland investigation into the contracts concluded there was inadequate financial safeguards in place to protect public money. Whilst stating responsibility for Scottish Government decisions ultimately rested with her as First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon said last year that the Transport Minister at the time contracts were signed was Derek Mackay. Mr Mackay had announced the contracts on stage at an SNP conference in October 2015. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Glasgow Times News on Tuesday the 6th of September. Glasgow colleges to receive support for care experienced students. An article written by Anne Fotheringham. A service for care experienced students will run at Glasgow colleges for a 4th year thanks to charity Action for Children. More than 800 vulnerable young people have received additional support to help them fulfil their potential while studying at City of Glasgow College, Glasgow Clyde College and Glasgow Kelvin College. Sarah Kearney, who's 19, studied Glasgow Clyde College's Fast Track into Futures course. She said, "I know that if I ever need someone to talk to, I have a place that I can go." Services to Assist You, or STAY, Stay, has definitely made a difference. It's more help than I've had before within education and makes me feel like I've been heard and that my issues have been listened to. College has helped me see what my opportunities are. Stay mentors worked throughout the summer period with around 120 pupils to support the transition from school to starting colleges in August and a further 50 continuing students in Glasgow. Hazel Kelly, Stay Transition Mentor at Glasgow Kelvin College, explained, "The transition from school to college can be daunting for young learners, particularly those from more vulnerable backgrounds who may not have support in place from family members. My role involved helping to make these pupils feel supported with the transition, so when they start their studies they feel as comfortable and confident as possible in the new environment." The partnership team now also works with Glasgow City Council's Towards Better Futures campaign, as well as the Robertson Trust, who fund, support and champion those seeking solutions to poverty and trauma. The service has also expanded to Edinburgh College, with support staff joining the college in April 2022. Marlyn Davidson has been with the Stay service since its inception and is the practice team leader, managing support staff across the Glasgow colleges. Marlyn explained, working alongside the partners in the college, the support we provide is absolutely crucial. The support goes beyond the college walls as we help students with mental wellness, financial support, housing and more. We do everything we can to ensure young people get their fair chance to sustain their place at college. We couldn't have done this without the support from Glasgow College's regional board and the colleges. It's a privilege to be part of this service and to work closely with our partners. Together, we're making a real difference. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon met the first care experience students to benefit from the service in 2020 at Glasgow Kelvin College to show her support for the vital initiative. An article written by Anne Fotheringham.
From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 7th of September 2022, from the news section, it's not just your life you can ruin. Cops warn against drink driving as man arrested near Glasgow. Report by Esther Tarnay. Police Scotland is warning motorists not to drink and drive after a man was arrested near Glasgow. The 31-year-old was arrested after allegedly driving dangerously on the A82 in Dumbarton on Monday. He was charged in connection with road traffic offences. Officers said on Facebook that a member of the public reported the driver yesterday afternoon. The post also read, "Don't drink and drive. It's not just your life you can ruin." He is due to appear at Dumbarton Sheriff Court in late September. A Force spokesperson said, a 31-year-old man has been arrested and charged in connection with road traffic offences on the A82 in Dumbarton on Monday, September the 5th, 2022. He is due to appear at Dumbarton Sheriff Court on Wednesday, September the 28th, 2022. A report will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal, and that report was by Esther Tarnay. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 7th of September 2022, from the news section, raging Glasgow quad biker drove vehicle towards innocent bystanders. This article is an exclusive by Catriona Stewart. A quad bike driver veered his vehicle at speed towards innocent bystanders in a reprehensible fit of rage. Craig Robertson forced a man walking a dog to leap out of the way after he lost his temper while riding the bike. He drove on the wrong side of the road, revved his engine and raced the bike towards people standing on the pavement. Witnesses saw Robertson riding a black quad bike at speed around Rye Road and Broomfield Road on August the 7th, 2021. Locals in the Barmulloch areas came out and challenged him due to concern for the safety of children who were in the area. In response, Robertson started shouting threats of violence and said, "You're getting done in," before telling a man to go back to his own country. To one woman he said, "I'm going to get my sister to come down here and smash you." The 28-year-old then left before returning with a woman who left again after a short while. Robertson, from Barmulloch, also left the scene on foot, but soon after a quad bike engine was heard coming from Broomfield Road. He was spotted on the wrong side of the road, driving in the direction of witnesses who were standing outside. He made a sharp turn, causing the quad bike to tip onto two wheels before mounting the pavement. He drove near the witnesses while gaining speed and revving his engine. Robertson shouted, "I'm from here, this is my scheme. Your man is getting done in." He drove off towards a roundabout but was driving on the wrong side of the road. Glasgow Sheriff Court was told last week how Robertson then entered the forecourt of a nearby BP garage, again at speed, and drove towards a man walking his dog. The Deputy Fiscal described how the man had to leap to the side to avoid being struck by the vehicle. Robertson finally drove off and was not seen again. His defence brief said that Robertson, by his own admission, had been in self-destruct mode after losing 3 friends and family members in a short space of time. The lawyer added that his client appreciated his behaviour was unacceptable. Robertson is already on a community payback order in relation to another matter. He works for Asda doing home deliveries, and the court heard he will lose his job if he loses his licence, as he drives for a living. Sheriff Jonathan Guy said, "This is an absolutely shocking course of conduct, driving at people he's arguing with on a quad bike. The risk for him here of going to prison is high, driving at a civilian who had nothing to do with it. I'm going to take some persuasion not to send him to custody. During sentencing, the sheriff said, I regard your behaviour as utterly reprehensible. You have a previous conviction, and to the serious nature of your actions, it would be open to me to send you to prison. The sheriff told him he would have been looking at 10 months in prison, but he added, I have been reluctantly persuaded not to send you to prison today. You are a person trying to address your offending behaviour. If it had not been for that, I would have taken the opportunity to send you to prison today. Robertson was placed on a community payback order with 14 months supervision and ordered to carry out 270 hours of unpaid work. And that article is an exclusive by Catriona Stewart.
Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 6th of September. Opinion. After 13 years, it's time to say goodbye. A column written by Catriona Stewart. I have a fairly terrible confession to make. Actually, it's not fairly terrible, it's just plain terrible. When I started working at the Evening Times, as we were then, I had never heard of the paper before. Not only had I never heard of it, I had a weird mental block that stopped me retaining the name in my head for more than 5 minutes at a time. What I used to do, as a cheat, was to keep a copy of the paper next to my desk phone, so that when I picked up a call I could glance at the masthead and read it out. Hello, Evening Times. Now, 13 years later, it's goodbye, Glasgow Times. This is my final week, and it's bizarre to me when I think how, from not knowing the paper at all, it's become such an integral part of my life. I think of all the opportunities I've had thanks to the Glasgow Times, and I can't quite believe or understand my good fortune. As might be apparent from the fact I didn't know the paper until I stepped through the door of the office, I fell into journalism in what turned out to be an extremely happy accident. When I was a student, I worked in Starbucks, near to the former offices of the Herald and Glasgow Times, STV and the Daily Mail. Shireen Nanjani, then the main STV news anchor and now BBC radio host, was a regular customer. Tall mocha frappuccino. And she, extremely kindly, set me up with work experience. I was a clueless teenager from Coatbridge, with no idea that the world of newspapers or television might be one for me, but almost from the moment I set foot in the STV studio, I knew that journalism was all I wanted to do. It was not a great start. I remember with some horror asking the extremely famous John Mackay, who had deigned to stop and speak to me, what he did for a job. Undeterred and determined to do my research, I mooched work experience from the Scottish Daily Mail news editor, double tall semi-skimmed latte, going in for 1 week's work experience and hanging about for 5 years. From there I was offered shifts at the Evening Times and again didn't know when to leave. I was given a staff reporter job in 2009 and somehow 13 years have flown by. What a brilliant job, what a brilliant city. I've had the opportunity to travel. I've been on press trips to Serbia and Mauritius and the Cayman Islands and Fort William. I've been to refugee camps on the Myanmar-Thailand border and travelled to Sierra Leone to write about the lack of maternity provision in the country. But the world is in Glasgow, and the past decade has given me a world of experience. When each reporter is given a community patch, I was given the South Side. It's obviously the best patch in the city, and I embraced it so fully that I also now call it home. The South Side came with Govan Hill, at the time a community in Glasgow that was quietly going about its business. Govan Hill has since become one of the most talked about, widely reported on, politicised areas of Scotland, perhaps the UK, and working there has been a highlight of my career. I've made dear friends, good contacts, and quite a few enemies, with, I hope, balanced and wide-ranging coverage of the area's issues. I've been our paper's court reporter, covering front-page High Court trials alongside shedding light on the types of smaller-scale stories that few papers still have the resources to cover. My role as education reporter also opened up the chance to do justice to the amazing work in our city's schools, giving plaudits where they're due to innovative schemes helping transform education in the city. Over the past decade, parents have increasingly stopped moving out to the suburbs when it's time for their children to start school, and the improvements in attainment have been a joy to watch. When I arrived in newspapers, it was at a transitional point where sexism was still rife and the drinking culture was still well established. We were not, let's say, discouraged from a drink at lunchtime. In fact, on one less than respectable day, the news editor took a group of us for wine at lunchtime. Several glasses of red in, I had a call telling me to hop in a taxi and head to McGee's factory in Sight Hill. Why? Because the then Prime Minister David Cameron was there and someone had to go and interview him. Times have changed, the culture's changed, and the job has vastly changed. The website wasn't something I ever had to be concerned about, social media didn't exist, and video content was a cutting-edge novelty. I look at the younger reporters coming into the office now and admire their multidisciplinary skills. My new colleagues are bright and focused, and while I'm desperately sad not to be working with them anymore, I can't wait to see how they help shape the future of the paper. Glasgow is an incredible city, and the Glasgow Times remains its most faithful champion. I'm so grateful to it, and grateful to our readers. Thank you, and bye for now. A personal column written by Katrina Stewart.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times News podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.